Is 2:35, so we're gonna get started despite desperately wanting to see this dance battle continue. We're gonna ask Kahu Kenzie to unmute and give us an opening pule, please.
Okay, shoot. Ipulikako. Heavenly Father, once again, we like to mahalo you so much for the opportunity to gather together with such an awesome group of people. Father, we thank you for the way you've carried us through this year with all of the transitions and changes, the COVID, um, and as we continue on to the rest of this year, Father, we pray that you provide wisdom and guidance to make the best decisions possible for our haumana, for our ohanas, for everybody, for all of our um, KS staff. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Mahalo, Kahu. All right, so we are going to get started with our pilina today. Our pilina is going to be 3 passes. So we're going to pass to 3 people. What are your plans for spring break? So it's only a week and a half away, and you get to have a nice little rest and relaxation. So what are you planning to do for your spring break? I'm going to pass it to dance battle contestant Kealoha.
All right, yeah. All right, I'm gonna spend time with my mo'opuna. Yeah.
Are you going to be on this island, or are you going to Oahu?
No, I'm staying here. Mo'opuna's already here.
Ah,
Yeah. I don't have any time right now to spend with them. That's the only problem. Spring break. All right, I'm gonna pass on to someone that I hardly ever get to talk to. In fact, not for a long time. Kumukaumi.
Yeah, yeah. No, I know him, but I hardly see you anymore. We're brothers. Yeah. So definitely spring break. Looking forward. Nah, I haven't even got past today yet, but yeah, spring break. Looking forward to spending time with my keiki. Yeah, gotta spend time with my keiki. Gotta get down to the ocean. Gotta cleanse. Gotta do family stuff. Maikai mahalo. Passing it on to Kumu Mando.
Oh, spring break. Well, I don't know about the weather, but I have the second coat on my mom's little outside cottage of paint to do. And then hopefully that gets done. Other than that, same thing. Time with the kids. Actually, I only have one. Connie's going to surf Oahu, North Shore. Yeah. So time with my daughter and my husband and my mom. Mahalo.
nice. I'm going to give you a minute to just type it into the chat if you were not one of our 3 passes, so that we can, I think the word is mahaoe, so we can be a little bit nosy and see what you're doing during spring break. Oh, okay, so I just really want to start with mahalo because this school year has been like 5 school years in one. And so I really mahalo each of you for rolling with so many changes. I used to like to describe myself as a flexible person, but I don't think I've ever been pushed to prove that that was true until COVID hit. So I mahalo you also for setting our students up for success. You train them really carefully, both in working proficiently online, as well as how to function on campus while adhering to very safe practices. So our Haumana have reported over and over that they're so grateful to be back in school, through our pulse surveys, through passing conversations with different kumu, like they're loving it. I mahalo you each for being so courageous as you've prepared new and different experiences for them throughout this school year. Despite a plethora of obstacles, you've still managed to take our Haumana out on Huaka'i. You've created group performances. You've allowed them to partake of your excellent instruction, whether that was in partnership with the VTAM, the Mala, the kitchen, or just every day in your classrooms. So really, because of your preparation and your careful work in training our students, they are very ma'a to the procedures that will keep them safe. And it gives me a lot of confidence as we push forward in providing them the best access to what our school has to offer. So as we shared earlier, the week following spring break is going to be full distance learning, allowing our spring break travelers to quarantine as needed upon their return. And while we were previously collecting your feedback as to where your back-to-back days would occur, because at that time we expected to have the same cohort for 2 days in a row each time we switched between online and face-to-face, there's no longer a need for that. The rotation that you're currently on will continue post-spring break. So the students that you are seeing right now on day A's are the same students you're going to continue to see on day A's for the rest of the school year. The students that you currently see on day B's right now are the same students that you're going to continue to see on day B's for the rest of this school year. So this is true on March 29 as well. All the kumu will continue with your same rotation when 100% of our students return to campus. So all students will still remain cohorted. You'll have the same schedule, the same blocks, same rosters. You will be still rotating to 3 different rooms every day, with the exception of our elective kumu and our counselors. Okay? So elective kumu, you'll still be having your haumana come to you in your classrooms. So because of this, we are currently identifying 6 learning spaces for each grade level to occupy. And we take your feedback very seriously. So we know that the sound pollution in the foyers was overwhelming on that first day back to school, way back in August. And while the foyer walls were very functional in keeping the students separated by cohort, it was just too loud for good instruction to take place in there. So while this plan may continue to evolve, what we are anticipating is that Papa 6 is going to be using all 4 rooms in your pod, as well as 2 learning spaces in Ha'ea Mahi. Papa 7, you're going to use your pod as well as 2 classrooms in building 2. So the VTAM classroom and then Lane and Kaipo's classroom. And then for Papa 8, you'll be using the 4 rooms in your pod plus Kanoe and Ka'umi's classrooms for rotation. Po'okula's message yesterday outlined this downward trend in the spread. And when we came back in January, our 7-day average was at 2%. And for several weeks now, we've been in less than half of 1%. So the average has been about 0.4 or 0.3 every day. Given the current reduction in this risk, the CDC shared updated guidelines for schools on February 18. And so fortunately, we're also going to have Malama Ola joining us on this call at 3 p.m. in order to share more of those safety type of information with you. And at that time, you can ask them any of your safety related questions. So if they're coming to mind now, please make a little T-chart on your note paper. And if they're like schedule related or kulawaina sort of questions, put them on one side of the chart. If they're like safety related questions, then we'll save those for Malama Ola when they get online. We will continue to maintain 6-foot distances wherever possible. And we really don't want to be advertising to the students that the 6-foot recommendation has been relaxed. Because we know that our adolescent population is already pretty relaxed about the social distancing. And so we want to, because we're aware that it's a little bit relaxed now, and because our students are ma'a to that distancing protocol, we will not need as many adults on supervision duty for breaks and lunch following spring break. So PUA will be communicating with morning and break supervisors directly for specific duty changes once the full scope of supervisory kuleana is determined. What we will need from all kumu. So what we will need from all Kumu after spring break is this, that on sunny days, all students must be outside during breaks so that our supervisors can keep eyes on them. And unless you choose to allow students to stay inside a classroom with you, where you might be spending your break time, we want you to send everybody outdoors. So the students who prefer to stay on their laptops, they just need to do it on the lanai so that our supervisors can keep eyes on them. In inclement weather, all students should stay in their homerooms, and our supervisors will monitor the classrooms from the foyer areas. And just as a side note, please message me if you're actively using your lanai tent, because with fewer supervisors now watching multiple cohorts in wider spaces, the tents kind of create a visual barrier for the outdoor supervisors. We want to honor your outdoor learning spaces if this is an area that you commonly use. But if it's not something that you're actively using, then I'm gonna ask ops to take down those tents outside. Okay, and then we ask that all of our Kumu assist the students with their re-entry from morning break. So while we'll have a separate supervisory crew for break time now, we'll need your help when they're getting back into the classroom. So that hand and equipment sanitization as they're coming back in, that 5-minute passing back in, we'll need your help there for sure. For Papa 8, this is going to include the specialists, because the specialists will be rotating into the classrooms after break. And then also our ELA, Social Studies, and Olelo Hui will need your help to bring the students back inside, grab their bags, and get to the elective room. So I don't think that's something that Papa 8 has. Oh no, you have been doing it because you've already been supervising, but moving forward, wherever you happen to be during break, you got to come back to make sure that those kids get on their way to electives. Okay. For the lunchtime, we're going to ask Kumu to keep your students for the first 20 minutes of the lunch block. So we just want them to be able to eat with you, whether that's indoors or outdoors. That's your choice for those 20 minutes. Electives, again, you've just had Papa 8. And so you're going to send, as you have been doing already, send the kids back to Papa 8 for, because their lunches will still be delivered to their homeroom. And then please send the students out for the rest of that lunch break block, because basically then you should have about a 40-minute duty-free lunch. Again, unless you're choosing to allow students to stay inside the classroom with you while you're working during that time. Otherwise, send them all outside for our supervisors to watch. Again, we're going to ask for the Kumu to assist with that student reentry. For lunchtime, it's Papa 6 that's going to have specialists in there for that reentry. And then Papa 6 will also need to assist with that ELA, Social Studies, Olelo Hui, who is then going to send their students on to the elective rooms. Okay. And then for after school, the student release at the end of the day should remain pretty similar to our current practice. If there are differences in transitions that are needed, they'll be announced via the intercom. And I think that's about it as we walk through the day. So I hope this provides you a better picture of what Kulowaina will look like after spring break. I'm going to try to answer any questions that you may have now. I see some coming up in the chat. If I don't have an answer for you, as is our kind of regular practice, I'll collect your questions and send out a frequently, like a FAQ on Friday with the nuts and bolts. And then again, if it's a safety related question, we have our COVID response team who will be joining us in about 10 minutes. So let me take a look at what's coming up on our chat. And maybe Pua, I'll ask you to stop sharing screen so that I can see people's faces again as we converse. Mahalo. Okay. Okay, so I'm looking at the chat. I see when you say lax, is that 3 feet? So the CDC has not given a specific number. I don't believe. It's just, I believe the wording has changed to like 6 feet when possible, sort of thing. So I think some people interpret that to be 3 feet, but that's not specifically stated there. If we release at 11:55, there is no passing, so not sure if that affects the lunch time. I mean, generally, our students are pretty quick about eating. I was supervising lunch today, and they were done by 12:08. So I think even stretching it to 12:15 is going to be enough for Papa 8 to get back to their homerooms and have lunch. Again, we'll play it by ear and use a lot of grace with one another. ASU students returning too. No, ASU students have opted in for the second half of the school year, so our ASU students will not be returning to our regular rosters. You'll continue to have the same blocks, same rosters as you currently have. If everyone is on campus and everyone is outdoor for recess, how will cohorts know to stay separate? So I think our students are pretty ma'a to what are their cohorted spaces. They are still going to be playing in those same areas. Our Papa 7 kids who are being located in Building 2 now will have designated areas for them in front of Building 2. So that brand new grassy area will be dividing so that they still are in their own cohorted areas. I don't want to have them redo the lanyard thing because I think they all kind of know their spaces. But if that becomes necessary, if the supervisors find it difficult to track them, then we'll ask for that later. But I don't think it's necessary right now. We assist with re-entry in our homeroom or the next class we will teach in. I'm assuming it's going to be the next class that you're teaching in. So like if you were already going to be there anyway to teach the next class, then you should be there to help them come inside, right? The one that's going to be weird is the post lunch because you're sending them off to electives. So that one we might have to take a look at, but we'll run that through Aha'alaka'i. Yes, there will be designated play areas for the new cohorts. 6 homerooms per grade level, correct. Lane's room is small. Will we try to move the smallest Papa 7 cohort to that room? That's correct. When will we be able to use space under the big tent? Now! So Alan, being very proactive, made sure that he checked and he went around and he cut off all the construction tape. So the 2 rooms on that side, Steve's room, Misty's room, the cohorts that are in those rooms can now use that tent area to play in during their break times. Okay. Is there an alternate location to dining hall if it does have the same issues as pods? You might have to help us brainstorm that because currently there is not. Other questions? Oh, no questions. That means it's time for dance battle part 2. Will Roma sign? Sorry, more questions came up. Sorry, I jumped the gun. I was too excited to see Kealoha bust a move again. Okay, Ron says, could we use the big tent for science? That is very possible. So if during class times you need an outdoor space that is covered, great idea. Will room assignments be given out? Yes, each of the students will need to know where to report. We're trying to keep the students who are currently in face-to-face right now in the rooms that they're already used to so that there's no change for them. The students who are home may be getting further messaging as to which room they will report to and stay in on a daily basis following spring break. Alan says, 1 group in foyer and 1 in Ha'ayamahi. Oh, great brainstorming, thanks. Oh, Holly says no. So again, I think it's really gonna depend on we have been in there because elementary has been using Ha'ayamahi for 4 different learning spaces currently. But when we went in there, of course, our little cutie elementary school children are much more quiet and compliant than what we know our middle schoolers to be. So we know that the sound is pretty well barriered when it's on both sides of the real wall. So there is like a half wall. And so if we're able to use the entire dining hall, I don't think sound will be a problem at all. It's if we have to further subdivide and use the half walls going the other way that you might have some sound problems. So again, we'll be getting finalized, spaces and supervision plans and those things with a little more time. Okay. Sorry, it moved up. Okay, what about Kumumando's room? Can we move furniture to a different storage area? For sure, because we're using the 8th grade pod in its entirety. Prana's having a party over there. She's so happy. Her room, Kaumi's room, and Kanoi's room have been housing a lot of stuff. That's all going to be taken out of there and furniture redistributed so that they can be active learning spaces. If the big tent is used for science, would it need to be cleaned for the 7th grade between? Currently we don't have any furniture in there. So just like when you use the foyers and you're vacating a spot, we expect you to inozo spray. But if science is just going out there and I don't know what you plan to do in there. So that's going to require more discussion. But currently we're not putting furniture in there because it's also the play space for 7th grade rooms that are facing that humongous tent. So if you're using items and leaving items in there, we would expect them to be sanitized. But again, it's in development as to what your ideas are when you say use. Room assignments, even for 8th grade with different grouping for math. Yes, 8th grade, you weirdos, you came up with weird schedules. Your 8th graders are gonna have to switch. So maybe on day A, they're always in Ron's room. On day B, they're always in Kaumi's room, but it'll just be between those 2 rooms for the students to remember. And then teachers will likewise get the schedule of the 3 rooms that they're circulating on day A and the 3 rooms that they're circulating on day B. I'm concerned yet that we have not received our first vaccine. Me too, Kaipo. I know that our first vaccine is scheduled for the 12th. I believe our second one, did we get a date for the second one? But I was thinking that it's before the 29th. Scott, do you know that date off the top of your head?
I know
thought it was April 9th.
I believe it's a Friday.
Okay. Someone said April 9. So yeah.
That's what I heard.
You still wrote in the 22nd.
I'll double check.
Okay, mahalo. Yeah, because I was under the impression that our second dose of vaccinations for those who desired to have them would be completed before we brought the kids back in. Right, you can put... Mele, you will not lose your furniture. It should be marked with your name on it. So things that have been stored in Pahana's room should still have your name marked on it. When it's safe to have non-wipeable furniture back, it will be re-delivered to you. For now, it will be stored elsewhere. Since things will be a little more lax, will the teams have the option of rotating the kids? The answer is no. We'll still continue to rotate. Okay, so we have it 3 o'clock and I see Dr. Fink has just entered our waiting room. Do I see Crystal and Nikki on our call as well?
I didn't see them yet. I just let Dr. Fink in though.
Okay, mahalo. Okay, so oh, I see Crystal entering the waiting room. Holly is concerned about quality of learning space in Ha'ayamahi. Basically, we're trying to keep you in as close to your pod areas as possible so that as you're traveling with CART, you're not needing to run the gamut of campus. And it's for 10 weeks, guys. So we've got 10 weeks till the end of school. So again, if you have other ideas of additional learning spaces, we're hoping again that we have the entire Ha'ayamahi to ourselves and that your sound issues will not become a problem. And definitely we'll meet with Aha Alaka'i to further discuss. All right, we're gonna turn our time over to Crystal. Thanks, Crystal, for being here.
Aloha.
Do you need to share screen at all?
Yes, I do. I have a deck.
Okay, I've made you co-host.
Okay, and I know Dr. Fink is here as well. Let's see if I can share. Okay, share screen. Oh, wait. Sorry. Technical difficulties.
No,
Okay.
no worries.
Share screen. Share. Okay. Do you guys see that COVID-19 update?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so I don't have too much in terms of and content, but we can share this deck with you all after the meeting to have a hard copy. So basically, I'm just going to kind of go through some of the more recent CDC updates and health updates. And then we're going to just do a quick refresh on our continued safety and talk about sort of next steps. I wanted to make sure that we had plenty of time left over for, any questions that you may have. I think Dr. Fink's here, and I think I saw Nicole just joined. So we've got the medical experts on the line for all of the hard questions as well. So just to jump into it, so what do we know now about COVID-19 and how does that impact us? So we know a lot more obviously today than we knew even 3 months ago when we probably met with you, or 6 months ago, and certainly a year ago, about COVID-19 and how the infection actually can spread, and also what the impacts are on K through 12 schools. And so a few weeks ago, we did get some great news from the CDC. I'm sure a lot of you saw the headlines, and now DOH has also come out with a similar position and in support of the CDC recommendations. And what they basically said is that based on the evidence that they have seen from schools that have been reopening across the country and internationally, that they don't see that schools are a significant contributor to increased transmission of COVID-19. And in fact, schools, and because of all of the safety protocols and measures we have in place, which I know you guys are living day in and day out right now, it can actually be a safer place for our children to be at on a day-to-day basis compared to, other community settings or family gatherings or all of the other temptations that are out there in our communities that may not have as robust protocols and procedures in place. So the CDC and the DOH now are both really recommending and sort of pushing schools across the nation to look at reopening on a bigger scale, assuming that we have all of these fundamental safety controls and layers in place, and also considering the level of transmission in each school's community. And so assuming that that's low to moderate, they're really sort of aiming to bring more kids back on site for on-site learning. And so we'll talk a little bit about what is low to moderate and go through the kind of CDC thresholds as well. But I just want to talk a little bit about what the CDC said was critical. And so these items in yellow here, kind of like the top 6, they're what I think of as sort of the non-negotiables from the CDC perspective. And I think all of this will look very familiar to you all because you're the ones that are doing all the hard work in regards to these things. And so the first one obviously is cloth face coverings, not a negotiable for us. I mean, it's just super important right now. We even have people that want to double mask. Contact tracing remains very important. If we do have a positive student or staff member, we do want to be able to identify close contacts so that we can ask those to quarantine or isolate at home. We also want to make sure that we don't have any sick individuals at school and that individuals who may have been exposed are staying home. So that's, all covered in those daily wellness check-in questions that everybody loves so much, I know, but a lot of different scenarios of us trying to ensure that we have the right people on site every day, and that if you are waiting test results or there's some scenario going on with you, that you're just being cautious and staying home. And then of course, Our two other favorites, the more frequent cleaning and disinfection, and then the personal hygiene and respiratory etiquette. Again, hand washing, sanitizing, not sneezing, others, using your elbow if you're going to sneeze. Those are also really key, according to the CDC still. And then physical distancing, this was one of the more significant updates. So what they did is they talked about physical distancing in relation to community transmission, knowing that a lot of schools, it's not possible to achieve 6 feet of distancing. Each school's kind of got a unique footprint and setup. But what they reiterated is that if we are in lower levels of community transmission, we're in kind of that low to moderate zone, that 6 feet of physical distancing doesn't need to be a barrier to in-person learning, as long as we've got all of these other safety protocols in place. But as we do get into those higher levels of community transmission, we really want to make sure that our cohorts are tight. And we also want to make sure our cohorts are tight if we can't achieve 6 feet of physical distancing. So that was kind of the top 6. And then I just added some on. In our state, we've been fortunate that vaccinations are moving along for educational staff. And so we've got a majority of our staff, I think, that have had first vaccination opportunities. I think your island is going to be picking up the pace pretty soon. I think Maui's probably the furthest behind. Oahu's moving forward. So we're looking pretty good in terms of vaccinations. Our upgraded and improved ventilation is definitely something that's a privilege for us that we were able to implement at the beginning of the school year. And then another item, the testing program, another big bonus for us. So we do have a screening program in place, for volunteers who wish to be tested periodically. We now have the capability to test symptomatic students on site. And then if we were to actually have a positive case and individuals, close contacts were still on site during the school day, we would also be able to test them if they had consented via our EHR as well. So just another bonus. That testing program so far, we've only had 4 positive cases, I think, across the entire enterprise since we started, back in October. So just not a lot of huge concerns that came out of testing all of these volunteers. And then physical barriers, I know we have all over the place across all of our schools, depending on the circumstances, if you have difficulty actually physical distancing. And then we've got our isolation spaces when students are ill. We've got a whole long list of travel policies right now. If you're traveling inter-island or out of state, how to get validated, how to get cleared. So I think we've definitely gone above and beyond when it comes to travel in terms of making sure that you're following your county guidelines, but also following our KS protocols as well. And then all of our schools are still temperature checking too today. So I'm sure there's others I could have listed here that you guys are like, what about this and what about that aren't even on this list. But this was kind of the running list that we have now that really makes us feel confident that we do have the capability to continue bringing more keiki on site when we get back after spring break. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the CDC thresholds. This stuff can get pretty confusing. So I would say that these are straight from the CDC right now. That you'll see this new case metric looks a little bit different than what you may have seen from KS. The CDC actually looks at new cases in the last 7 days, whereas for our state, we look at new cases in the last 7 days, average per day. So it's not really an apples to apples comparison if you've seen any, recent risk threshold reports, but we are holding on kind of revising and refreshing our thresholds until the Hawaii DOH looks at their thresholds in light of the new CDC refresh so that we can kind of refresh all at one time to eliminate any confusion. So we are currently going through the process of kind of bumping up where we're at today with the CDC and with the Hawaii DOH. So there will be more information provided on that. But I think the good news, I could be oversimplifying, is that your island is in awesome shape right now. You guys have been, no matter what threshold, you're in the low range right now. And you have been for quite some time. Really encouraging and exciting to see. So I hope you're all excited about that as well. And then as we work to kind of finalize, if there will be any adjustments to our KS thresholds, we will definitely keep your campus and all the other campuses posted on what that will look like. But today, just really awesome progress on your island. Okay, and then our next steps. So yeah, just to recap, we are in full support of looking to increase on-site density in those communities where the community transmission warrants it and where we have capability to follow all of our safety protocols. Aim for 6 feet of physical distancing, but if it's not reasonable, if it's not achievable, we don't want that to be the barrier to in-person learning if we're in a low to moderate kind of transmission zone. And then we will look back though to the 6 feet if numbers were to creep up. Hopefully they won't. No one has a crystal ball though, but we will reconsider going back to 6 feet if we did see a spike in numbers over a period of time. And then just another plug in terms of contact tracing and what's important, I guess, for our response team and for your leadership team is that it's still going to remain important that we do have accessible lists, class lists and bus lists and activity lists for any of the students that will be in close contact with each other throughout the day. And to the extent possible, limiting any unaccounted time for the students if to less than 15 minutes is also really helpful as well. So right now, we still need to be able to pull those lists relatively quickly if we were to find out that someone tested positive. Let's see, did I miss anything? I think that's all I had in terms of the actual kind of CDC update. I don't know if Kenny or Nicole have anything they want to add on or share, or we can just open it up to questions. Dahani, do you have any?
Sounds good. Normally, we are comfortable with posting questions in the chat. If you'd like to do so now, that's great. Or you can unmute and ask aloud.
Hey, Crystal. Sorry, Alan. I just want to be real clear about this whole distancing thing. So as of right now, we're not gonna advertise that it doesn't have to be 6 feet. However, we don't have to be very strict, right? In terms of like the 6 feet distancing, if it's going to hinder any of the learning activities. That's what you said, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, that's deals. And then do we have new guidelines on sizes of cohorts or gathering size, changes? Because before there was like 50 people max or 100 people max or for any types of activities. Has that changed?
That is a great question. So we are currently passing around a draft on that right now as we speak, and different leaders are weighing in on what those guidelines should be. I think just as a preview, it's going to come down probably to Po'okula discretion a lot when we're in the low transmission area zone like you guys are. I know that we're getting to bigger and bigger sizes right now, and so we want to make it easy for you guys to operate when you're at such low levels. But I don't have any limits right now, but that will probably be shared around the same time that the KS thresholds will be shared.
Good questions. Others? All right. Again, as you continue to have questions come to your mind, please jot them down. Send me an email. We will route our safety questions through Crystal and Nikki again if we need their expertise
Hey, honey.
on any items. Yes.
I have a quick question, and maybe this is something Dr. Fink can address for everyone. I think earlier in the chat, I saw a question that came up around the vaccination and just the concern that we're gearing up for March 29th, our first vaccination, our rescheduled vaccination date for campus people who are taking advantage of that option is March 12th. So Dr. Fink, would you be able to just comment on the vaccination, how it works, and knowing that probably many of us on the screen or of our faculty and staff on the screen were probably getting their shot on the 12th, and how that would play out for us as we just progress down to opening up. And
Ooh, that's a good one. Dr. Fink, don't forget to unmute.
So the the only two vaccines currently available in Hawaii are still the Pfizer and Moderna. I don't think the J&J has really been distributed yet, even though it's the one that just got the emergency use authorization. Of the Pfizer and Moderna, that's what's being used. I think I just saw about 15% of the states already received at least one dose. Within the United States, probably well over 60 million doses. So there's lots of data known about its safety. And there's a note there. Maybe we're getting J&J. Okay. The data that's available is very reassuring about the safety profile of these vaccines. I originally was hesitant when they first got rolled out, and then kept a close eye on the research, and then I decided to go ahead and get vaccinated. I've actually had my 2 shots. The reactions can range. The symptoms that someone will get are from their immune system. So the local pain or redness is the body's reaction to it. Fatigue, aches, chills, that's actually part of the response of the mediators that are released from your own immune system as it's reacting to the vaccine. So those symptoms are actually not caused by the vaccine itself, but by the body's reaction to it. Symptoms seem to be worse after the second dose than the first dose. But people can feel lousy after getting either dose. Again, I try to look at the data, but also just tell you anecdotally, you probably hear from lots of other folks. I didn't get symptoms until about 24 hours later. And then I had symptoms that, I was feeling pretty lousy for about 24 hours, and then it kind of went away as quickly as it came on. So to anticipate if there's going to be school the next day, there may be a significant number of staff who are feeling lousy. It cannot cause the infection. You cannot pass on infection. I'm not sure how the campus is going to handle. I think you still probably want to pass the wellness check, even though the symptoms are caused by the vaccine itself. So however the campus wants to handle kind of that next day, but you should anticipate that there will probably be a decent percentage of folks that will have some symptom as just a normal side effect from the vaccine. The vaccine causes the production of a protein that looks like the surface protein of the coronavirus. So you're not getting the whole virus itself or the code for the whole virus, just for that one little part of that surface protein. And then the body then makes that protein, and that production of that protein peaks around 48 hours. So that's why it's typical that symptoms kind of peak, somewhere around maybe 24 to 48 or upwards of 72 hours. So that's what people should should expect. I don't know if that answers your question.
That was my initial question, and my main question was since we're only getting one shot before all the students come back 100%, what's the effective rate? Is that okay, or should we hold off until we all get our 2 shots?
So the level of efficacy that's quoted at like 94 to 95% is based on at least 2 weeks after the second dose. And when they talk about efficacy, what they used was the rate of developing symptomatic infection in those who were vaccinated compared to those who were not. So that's what the studies and that's what that efficacy refers to. You will have some immunity after the first dose. I can look it up. I'm not sure I can quote you the data of kind of what percent efficacy. I don't think that's necessarily been well studied just because it's been a 2-dose series. So you may have partial protection, but you will not have, nearly that quote unquote 95% protection after one dose. But with all the other measures that are in place, the greatest indicator of there being a case at school is the prevalence in the community. And your prevalence right now is super low. So the likelihood of having someone come to school with a case is very, very low. And then the measures that you have to reduce transmission are also in place, and those very much reduce the risk. So, I look at vaccination as just another layer to those measures. It should not supplant, all those other measures. So again, I think if you have all those other safety measures in place, the vaccine just is one more thing to help reduce the risk.
Mahalo for your response.
Thanks for our chat cheerleader, Alan, over there. And then I see Misty is uploading a lot of helpful resources if you'd like to take a look at more of those statistics.
My resources are Pfizer centric though.
Any other questions while we have Dr. Fink and our COVID response team online?
Sorry, Crystal, when do you think that guidelines of the group sizes will come out? I know you said when the new update comes, but can you have a kind of a rough timeline? Sorry, you muted, Crystal.
There we go. Sorry. I would say next week, but I don't want to over-promise and under-deliver. So if you guys have events that you're trying to plan that are coming up, you can always reach out to us directly too for feedback and thoughts. We get a lot of those one-off type things. Daryl and I get a lot of those. So yeah, don't feel like you have to wait if you have something that you need to get moving on now.
Okay, if no other questions, then I'm going to move on to the next item in our agenda. Last chance, peeps.
Mahalo, Crystal, Dr. Fink, and Nicole for joining us.
Thank you. Take care.
Mahalo nui ahui ho. All right, so we're just going to move forward with our announcements, campus-wide announcements, if you have any to share. We have one from our distance learning committee. I've linked in your agenda for today our Kumu survey that we'd like you all to share your mana'o on. The distance learning committee will be meeting again to review your answers on Monday after school. So we definitely want you to take the survey before Monday afternoon. Basically, we continue to hope and pray that that COVID ends, and that this distance learning plan will not even be needed next fall. But we just want to have something in place in case. And so we definitely need your mana'o in helping us make the best decision for that. Any other announcements for the group as a whole? I see Ellen's hand is up.
Hey guys, I just want to thank you so much for helping with all of the tech stuff. I just wanted to give you a heads up that we're really running low on loaners, and that also Global Protect, honestly, if it doesn't work, they just have to keep restarting. I have no fix for Global Protect. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So giving them a loaner isn't necessarily going to solve that problem. So I'm doing my best to get loaners restocked into the lockers, but right now there's 1 in 8th grade, 1 in 6th grade, and 2 in 7th grade. So hopefully I can get some more in there soon.
Awesome.
But thank you guys. You guys are amazing.
Any other announcements that you want to share, Kulawide? Okay, I don't see any more hands. I feel like poor thing when Kenzie has to pray twice in a row. So do we have another volunteer for Pule? In my house, it's always like, I just bless the food. I don't need to say goodnight prayers. So do we have another volunteer? Fine, just like my keiki, I'll volunteer. Oh, Kiloha, yay! Thank you.
Homara kako. E kia kua mana loa I loko ka lani ke ho mai ka I mahalo ni mako ia oi no ko aloha palena ole ia mako ame ko ko ana mai ia mako I ke ia wa paakiki o I hoi kia o ana maloko o ke ia mai kolona e olo oe e kia kua e nauno e alaka ia kia I malama mau ia mako I hiki mako ke a opono ke ia po e haumana mako I like me ko maki. O ipu me mako I ko mako haalele ana aku me ke ia halawai. I hiki mako ke hoi hoi ko mako ohana. Ko mako leo pule ke ia makaino ka makua ke keiki a me ka uhani he malele. Amen.
Mahalo. And now Kealoha will defend his dance battle championship belt as we all see you later.